She pointed at my old clothes and laughed. Shame on the family. I swallowed hard. My own son looked away, as if he didn't know me. The pain didn't come all at once. It came silently, like a knife that cut slowly. That night, while everyone was asleep, I heard something that changed everything, something said about me. The next day, I rang their doorbell, and when she opened the door, she would never forget what she saw. It was a cold autumn afternoon in Springfield, Illinois, the kind of cold that leaves the ground covered in dry leaves and the air smelling of nostalgia. Martha held the platter of scalloped potatoes as if it were an offering. She wore her old navy blue knitted sweater with a small stain near the collar and slightly frayed threads. It had been a gift from her late husband almost 30 years ago. She entered the living room with a shy smile, finding Emily reclining on the sofa with a glass of wine in one hand and her cell phone in the other. Daniel, Martha's son, was in the kitchen finishing the turkey. It was the traditional Sunday family dinner, at least it used to be. "Look, Martha brought potatoes," Emily said without taking her eyes off her phone, "and with her sweater from the 60s. The comment was accompanied by a dry laugh, the kind that leaves no doubt. It wasn't a joke, it was contempt. The room fell silent. The sound of Daniel's knife cutting the turkey ceased for a second. Martha smiled, trying to look away. "That sweater belonged to John. He loved it." "Yes, we know," Emily interrupted. "It's just that, well, maybe it's time to retire him. Literally. Don't you think, Daniel?" Daniel didn't answer. He continued carving the turkey as if nothing had happened. But Martha saw what hurt the most. He didn't defend her. Not a look, not a gesture. Just complicit silence. Martha sat down slowly. The smell of dinner seemed to have lost its taste. She fiddled with her napkin, trying to hide her trembling hands. Emily stood up and went to serve the wine with firm, almost triumphant steps. "You know, sometimes I think," said Emily, helping herself, "a picture is worth 1,000 words, and certain clothes, well, they say a lot about a person, don't they, Mother Martha?" "Mother Martha!" The irony dripped from her voice. It was as if each word had been rehearsed to hurt, but Martha simply nodded. "Of course, darling," she said with a smile that hid her embarrassment. "Clothes really do speak volumes." Dinner continued with superficial conversation. Daniel commented on his work at the bank. Emily complained about the nanny, who didn't know how to properly clean the marble floor. Martha listened silently, pretending to chew. When dinner was over, Martha offered to help with the dishes. Emily refused with a forced smile. "No, don't worry, you've already done enough." That was enough for Martha to understand. She said goodbye with a cold hug from her son and a good night that sounded more like a whisper. Back in her small suburban apartment, she took off her sweater and folded it carefully. She sat in the armchair and stared at the wall. On the shelf, a photo of 8-year-old Daniel smiled at her, his face smeared with paint and a science fair diploma in his hands. She remembered how many nights she had sewn late to buy that chemistry kit. That night, he didn't sleep. At 3 in the morning, he got up to get a drink of water. And that's when he heard something he would never forget. Emily's voice, on the other end of the line, speaking on the phone in the kitchen, unaware that Martha was still awake. "I swear, I don't know how much longer I can take it. That old woman is a drag on my life. If Daniel doesn't realize it soon, he'll end up just like her, poor, alone, and smelling of mothballs." Martha froze. The glass slipped from her hand and fell to the floor with a dry thud. Emily heard but didn't go to check. Martha returned to her room in silence. The following morning, before sunrise, she took a box from under the bed. No one knew what was inside, not Daniel, not Emily, but that day, she was going to show it. The clock in the room showed 2:47 a.m. Martha hadn't slept a wink since returning home. Sitting in her beige armchair, a thin blanket draped over her shoulders, she stared blankly into space. Outside, the wind whistled through the cracks in the window, carrying dry leaves like ghosts from a past that insisted on returning. Emily's words kept hammering in his head. Poor, alone, and smelling of mothballs. That phrase seemed to echo off every wall of the small apartment, the kind of pain that doesn't burn, but freezes. Chills from the inside, as if a part of her had died there in the middle of the kitchen, in that early morning when all she wanted was a glass of water. Martha stood up slowly, her knees aching. She went to the bedroom, turned on the bedside lamp, and knelt beside the bed. Carefully, she pulled out a worn cardboard box, tied with an old ribbon. Inside were the memories she never wanted to show, but now they seemed her only defense. If it's shame she wants to feel, she'll get it, she murmured to herself. Inside the box were photos from her youth in Chicago, documents, newspaper clippings with old articles, a rusty key, a letter with a blue stamp, and a contract folded in 4. She ran her fingers over the yellowed paper reverently. It carried more than ink. It carried sacrifices, struggles, sleepless nights, and a past. Emily could never have imagined. The sound of her upstairs neighbor's alarm clock snapped her out of her trance. It was 5:20 a.m. The sun was beginning to paint the living room curtains orange. Martha stood up, picked up the box, and placed it on the table. She took a deep breath. It was time to act. Before leaving the house, she took one last look in the mirror. She tied her grey hair back with a simple clip. She put her blue sweater back on. Yes, that same one. But now it looked like armor. He picked up the box and left. By the way, a quick pause here. Tell me in the comments, what city or country are you watching this story from? It's incredible to see how far our emotions can travel. It is clear, if this story is captivating you, subscribe to the channel now. Turn on notifications and stick with me until the end, because what's going to happen in the next chapters will give you goosebumps. Now, back to the story. On the other side of town, Emily woke to the sound of a doorbell. Still sleepy, she looked at the digital clock on her bedside table, 7:12 a.m. She grumbled and went downstairs. "Who rings the doorbell at this hour on a Sunday?" she muttered, annoyed. He opened the door impatiently and froze. Martha was there, firm, serious. Her eyes were dry but deeply intense. In her hands, the box. "Martha, what? May I come in?" Emily hesitated for a second, looking around as if she wanted to make sure no one saw the scene. "Daniel is still sleeping. I didn't come." "For him? I came for you." Emily raised an eyebrow. She made her way through without saying anything more. In the living room, Martha placed the box on the coffee table and sat down without asking permission. Emily, uncomfortable, crossed her arms. "What's inside?" Martha didn't answer. She simply removed the papers, the clippings, the documents, one by one, delicately, until she took out the property contract and calmly placed it on the table. Emily leaned forward to read, her eyes widening with each line. Is this yours?" Martha finally looked her in the eyes. "It belonged to my father, then to my husband, and now it's mine. You think you know who I am, Emily, but you've only seen my clothes." Emily swallowed hard. Martha stood up, gathered the papers, and before leaving, placed an envelope on the table. "If you want to continue humiliating someone, choose your victim better, because I haven't finished my story yet." And with that, he walked out the door without looking back. That same Sunday, after leaving Emily speechless, Martha returned to her apartment and closed the door with a tired sigh. She leaned against it for a few seconds, as if she needed that support to keep from collapsing. Her hands still trembled, not from weakness, but from the strength she had to muster to do what she had done. The box, now on the kitchen table, seemed alive. Each object inside carried a piece of her soul. She sat down and pulled out a faded photograph. Era, 1979. Martha was only 22 years old and worked as a sewing assistant in a tiny atelier in the Humboldt Park neighborhood of Chicago. Her fingers, though young, already had the calluses of someone who knew the weight of responsibility. She had married John at 19, an impulsive love, the kind you believe will last forever, until forever ended 2 years later when he went out to buy cigarettes and never came back. He left behind only debts, an empty crib, and a hastily written note. "I'm sorry. I can't be a father." Daniel was 6 months old at the time. Martha didn't cry on the day of her departure. She didn't have time. She needed to feed her son. She sold the few jewels she inherited from her mother, handed over her engagement ring at the pawn shop on the corner, and started working as a cleaner in the atelier before being promoted to sewing assistant. Time passed, but the Chicago cold seemed unforgiving. There were nights when she slept wearing 2 coats, with Daniel wrapped in a woolen blanket she had made herself. The milk was often diluted to last longer, and her shoes always got holes before she even considered buying new ones. Even so, he never complained. He never asked anything of anyone. Her talent with fabrics and patterns quickly caught attention. The owner of the atelier, Mrs. Goldstein, a Jewish Holocaust survivor, took her under her wing. She saw in her the strength she recognized in the eyes of those who had endured pain too great to put into words. It was Mrs. Goldstein who gave her the first chance to create a piece from scratch, a simple, elegant blue dress, which ended up being worn by a local reporter at a charity event. The next day, the atelier's phone wouldn't stop ringing. The dress was designed by Ems Lane, a pseudonym Martha created to avoid prejudice for being a single mother. No one knew that behind that sophisticated signature was an exhausted woman, waking up at 4:30 a.m. to change diapers before taking 2 buses downtown. For 5 years, Martha and Mrs. Goldstein designed together. They created more than 50 pieces that circulated discreetly among local celebrities and fashion columnists. The partnership grew so much that, before passing away, Goldstein left Martha a small part of the atelier, with legal rights registered in a contract, the same contract that Emily had now seen. But Martha never wanted fame. She never sought recognition. When Daniel turned 12 and won a full scholarship to a private school, she decided to quietly sell her share of the business. She used the money to buy a small apartment and saved the rest for his college education. She went back to sewing on her own, making alterations to wedding dresses and graduation suits, always in silence. He never told Daniel about Ems Lane, nor about Mrs. Goldstein. He was afraid that the past would make him feel ashamed, or worse, sorry. But now, seeing the kind of woman he had married, she was beginning to realize that hiding his history hadn't protected him. Perhaps it had blinded him. She put the photograph back in the box and held tightly to Mrs. Goldstein's handwritten letter. To Martha Lane, the strongest woman I've ever known. You are made of steel with a soul of silk. Don't let the world sew you inside out. Martha closed her eyes. She let a tear fall, just one. At that moment, she wasn't the woman in the worn-out sweater that Emily had seen. She was Em Lane. And he was about to rewrite his own history, stitch by stitch, line by line. It was a cloudy Tuesday when Daniel showed up at Martha's apartment. He was carrying a bag with some fruit, bread, and a liter of milk, symbolic gestures that only masked the unease in the air. He was visibly restless, like someone about to say something he'd been rehearsing for days. Martha, always kind, offered Daniel tea. Daniel refused. "Mom, we need to talk." She caught the tone. Her heart tightened. "Of course, my son. Take a seat." Daniel settled into the checkered fabric armchair that he himself had helped choose when he was 14 years old. For a moment he looked around as if he were in a time capsule. The same curtains, the same ceramic flower design on the wall. Everything there was memory, everything there was love. But he looked away. He cleared his throat. Emily and I were talking, and we think it might be better for you to consider other housing options. Martha didn't answer immediately. She just stared at him. Any other options? He repeated calmly. Yes, like a place where you have assistants, a more comfortable space with professionals. You're already 68, Mom. It's just a matter of safety. And was it Emily's idea? Silence was the answer. Martha smiled slightly, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. So that's it. After all, I'm a nuisance. That's not it, Mom. It's just sometimes you seem tired, you forget things. Emily just wants the best for everyone. She even researched some options, nice places, with a garden, a nurse, a reading room. Reading room? She interrupted with a hint of sarcasm. How wonderful. And where is the room for hugging the grandson I've never met? Daniel lowered his eyes. The silence between them grew heavy. Martha stood up slowly, went to the bookshelf, and picked up a framed photo. A picture of her holding Daniel on the first day of school. He was in his uniform. She had dark circles under her eyes from sleepless nights. I remember when you had a fever and I didn't have money for medicine. I took the bus to the furthest hospital because the closest one refused to help. Do you remember that? Daniel nodded without looking. Remember when you wanted to do an exchange program and I sold my sewing machine to pay for your ticket? Mom, please. No. Listen now. She approached him with the picture frame in her hands. I never asked for anything. I never knocked on your door for help. I never invaded your life. And yet, the woman you married is ashamed of me. And you remain silent. Daniel took a deep breath, fighting back tears. I just want you to be okay. And you think locking me up in a nursing home, surrounded by strangers, is being okay? He didn't know what to say. Martha sat down again. Her eyes were watery, but her voice was firm. I may be getting old, Daniel, but I'm not useless, and I'm not disposable. And you know what else? I know exactly what she's trying to do. She just forgot one thing. What? I'm still alive, and I still have a lot to show. Daniel stood up. He picked up the bag and placed it on the table, as if that could soften what he had just said. I'll be back tomorrow. No need, son. Go live your life. He hesitated. He wanted to hug her, but he didn't have the courage. He left through the door with the weight of 1,000 silences on his shoulders. Martha stood there alone, but for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel weak. She felt angry, and sometimes anger was all a woman needed to start over. That night, she opened an old notebook. Inside, she found the sketch of a dress that was never sewn, a bold red dress with modern cuts and classic features. She smiled. It's time to get back to sewing. 2 days had passed since Daniel coldly suggested, with a tone disguised as concern, that Martha go to a nursing home. But what he and Emily didn't know was that that conversation hadn't broken Martha. She rekindled it. That Thursday morning, a dry wind swept across the sidewalks of Springfield as Martha, dressed in a simple grey dress and a scarf around her neck, climbed the steps to her son's house with a brown envelope under her arm and an unusual glint in her eyes. She hadn't called, nor had she texted. She just showed up. Emily answered the door with the expression of someone expecting a delivery person, not an unwanted visitor. Martha, did something happen? Yes, and I came to deliver it personally. Emily hesitated before making her way through. In the living room, the scent of aromatic candles competed with the invisible. unease in the air. Martha looked around. Everything was immaculate, cold, soulless, a beautiful house that looked like a magazine showroom. Nothing there resembled home. She sat down without being invited. "Where is Daniel?" "At work, of course," Emily replied, crossing her arms. "Can I help you with anything?" Martha took the brown envelope out of her bag and placed it on the coffee table. It was thick and heavy. Emily looked at it suspiciously. "What is that?" "Documents, stories, things you never bothered to ask about." Martha's voice was calm but heavy. "Inside there are newspaper clippings, contracts, certificates, and a letter." Emily approached and opened the envelope with careful movements, not out of respect, but out of fear of what it might contain. The first item she pulled out was a copy of a partnership agreement. Martha's name was printed next to Miriam Goldstein's, founder of Golden Lane Atelier. Emily read it, dumbfounded. Golden Lane. Is that the brand that was bought by a New York company? Exactly. Before it was bought, it was ours. Emily was speechless. She moved on to the second item, a newspaper clipping from 1985 with the title, "Young Chicago Designer Creates Dresses That Enchant Local Elites." The photo showed a younger woman delicately holding a piece of fabric. "Martha, why have you never said anything about this?" "Because I was never asked, and because it hasn't made a difference. Until now." Emily swallowed hard. "So you have money?" Martha smiled, the kind of smile that only appears when the truth finally has a chance to breathe. "Not as much as you're thinking, but enough to choose where I want to live, and with whom I want to share the little that I will leave behind." Emily continued flipping through the documents. The letter was at the end, addressed to Daniel. Martha reached out before she could open it. "This one's for him, and for him alone." Emily nodded, but her discomfort was visible. "And why are you showing me this now?" "Because you need to understand one thing, Emily. I'm not a burden, nor a weight. I'm someone who fought with my own hands for everything I have, someone who loved more than I was loved, and someone who will no longer accept being treated as invisible." Emily tried to hide the confusion on her face, but it was obvious. Everything she thought she knew about her mother-in-law was crumbling. Martha stood up. "I wanted you to know me. Now you do. What you do with that knowledge is no longer my problem." Before leaving, he stopped at the door. "Oh, and tell Daniel I'll be busy this week. I'm going back to work." Emily didn't have time to answer. The door closed with a soft click, but with the weight of a bang. In the taxi back, Martha looked out the window. For the first time in a long time, she felt she was in control. She knew this was only the beginning. Emily would pull the strings, try to understand what else was in the story. But now, the narrative was no longer in her hands. Now it was Martha who was writing, and now I want to know from you. If you were in Martha's place, would you have done the same? Leave a comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if this story is affecting you. The next chapters will surprise you even more. That night, Emily didn't sleep. The envelope containing Martha's documents was still on the dining table, untouched since the visit. Daniel, arriving home from work, read the letter silently. When he finished, he was as white as a sheet. "Did you know that?" he asked. Emily denied it, but her eyes couldn't hide the gleam of someone who had sensed something valuable. "This changes everything, doesn't it?" she said, trying to control her anxiety. Daniel looked at his wife with suspicion. "She doesn't want anything, just respect. Is that too much to ask?" Emily didn't answer. She was engrossed in another question. How much is Martha Lane's past worth? In the following weeks, Emily turned the internet upside down. She searched records, old interviews, fashion archives. She discovered that the Golden Lane line had actually been acquired by a New York fashion startup, the Celine Apparel, for millions of dollars. Martha's name didn't appear anywhere, not as a founder, not as a collaborator. It was as if she had never existed. But she knew the truth now, and if that woman had given up her own name, perhaps she still held on to part of her history, or something even more valuable. It was. Then that Emily remembered a detail that Daniel had once casually mentioned. When I was a child, my mother kept everything in the basement. She was afraid that something important would be thrown away. That phrase came back like a whisper, and Emily decided to act. On Saturday, while Daniel was taking the car for a service, Emily showed up at Martha's apartment unannounced. He rang the doorbell with the same rehearsed smile as always. Martha opened the door. "Emily, is everything all right?" "Yes." "It is. I just wanted to talk. I apologized to Daniel. I think you deserve it too. May I come in?" Martha hesitated for a second but made way. While they drank tea, Emily maintained the charade. "I was thinking, have you ever considered writing a book? Your story is incredible. The way you created Daniel on your own, the sewing, it's all so inspiring." Martha raised an eyebrow. "And since when have you been interested in sewing?" Emily laughed, disconcerted. "Maybe she's maturing." The conversation continued until Martha went to the bathroom. Emily took advantage of the opportunity. She walked around the house as if admiring the decor until she found the basement door. It was unlocked. She descended the wooden steps carefully, the light from her cell phone illuminating the cobwebs and old boxes. The air was thick, heavy with the past. On a rusty shelf, she saw a box with the name Goldstein written on it in pen. He opened it hastily. Inside, original molds, technical. Drawings signed by Lane, sketches of entire collections that were never released, pieces of a silent legacy. And at the bottom, a plastic folder. Emily opened it. It was a notebook with coffee stains, folded pages, and in the middle of it, a preliminary contract for the transfer of rights, still unsigned. But there it was, the company name Celine Apparel, and an outstanding compensation amount. If that was authentic, it meant that Martha was entitled to royalties that had not yet been paid. Millions, perhaps. "Oh my God," Emily whispered. That's when he heard footsteps. Martha stood at the top of the stairs, looking down with an expressionless face, looking for something. Emily froze. I got lost. The bathroom is the other way," Martha replied. Her voice was firm, cold. "Go upstairs." Emily obeyed, and for the first time she couldn't hold her mother-in-law's gaze. Back in the room, Martha spoke before she could say anything. "What's in the basement isn't yours, nor Daniel's. It's mine. Every line, every stitch, every tear shed on the fabric." Emily tried to argue, but Martha interrupted her with a curt phrase, "Get out of my house." Emily left, humiliated, but with a plan beginning to take shape. On the sidewalk, he called a contact from law school he'd met years before, a lawyer with experience in business records. "I need to know if a royalty agreement can still be activated after 30 years. The answer wouldn't come that day, but Emily had already made up her mind. If Martha didn't want to acknowledge the value of what she had, someone else would do it for her, even if it was by force. And you? Do you think Emily will stop here, or will she go even further? Comment below. I want to know what you would do if you found something like this hidden in your mother-in-law's basement. The following week began with an eerie silence hanging over Daniel and Emily's house. He felt something was off, though he couldn't quite put his finger on what. Emily, on the other hand, was meticulously calm. the kind of calm that comes from planning every step with surgical precision. She knew she couldn't confront Martha directly, so she chose the more subtle path, using Daniel. On Tuesday evening, while they were washing the dishes, she began the conversation in a soft, almost maternal tone. "Honey, I've been thinking, your mother is getting old. What if she, gets really sick?" Daniel frowned. "Sick? Yes. Alzheimer's, for example. Did you see how she forgets things sometimes? What if she has a seizure and no one can help? She just forgot where she put the key to the drawer. It happens. But what if something more serious happens? We need to be legally prepared. For her own good." Daniel looked at her suspiciously. "What are you suggesting?" Emily dried her hands and sat down at the table with a brown envelope in her hands. "I spoke with a lawyer. He advised me to obtain authorization, a legal representation document. You would be responsible for her financial decisions. If something happens, it's just a formality. We sign it and keep it. Simple." Daniel picked up the envelope and read it quickly. The legal language was dense. There were parts he didn't fully understand. "That seems a bit much to me, Emily." "Love," she touched his hand with forced sweetness. "If you don't do this, someone else might. And then what will become of her?" Daniel nodded slowly, still hesitant. "We'll show her and explain it together, calmly." Emily smiled. But inside, she cursed that answer. The next day, Daniel showed up at his mother's apartment with the envelope in hand. Martha was tending to her plants on the balcony, listening to an old jazz record. "Son, what a surprise. May I come in?" She nodded and offered him coffee. Daniel sat down, looking at the pictures on the wall, most of them hand-sewn by her. After a few minutes of small talk, he placed the envelope on the table. "Mom, Emily brought this. She thinks it would be good for you to sign. It's just a legal authorization, nothing serious. Just a formality in case you need help in the future." Martha did not touch the envelope. "A formality? Yes, it's just another form of protection for you." She stared at her son for long seconds. "Did you read it?" Daniel hesitated. "I skimmed it." And he trusted her. "She just wants to help." "She wants to erase me, Daniel. Don't you realize? Mom, stop it." Martha stood up and went to a drawer. She took out a small picture frame with a photo of Daniel at age 8, hugging a stuffed rabbit, smiling without his front teeth. "Do you know who sewed this rabbit?" "I did. From scraps of clothing that the neighbor was going to throw away. You cried when you lost it, and I made another one just like it." She placed the frame in front of him. "Emily may have good intentions, or not, but you're asking me to sign something you don't understand. Something that puts my life, my finances, in her hands." Daniel felt his face grow hot with shame. "Mom, that's not it. That's exactly it." She took the envelope and returned it to him. "Take this with you, and the next time you come to see me, make sure it's just to see me." Daniel stood there motionless, as if he had reverted to being that 8-year-old boy who depended on his mother for everything. Martha went back out onto the balcony without saying anything more. That night, Emily waited anxiously, like a spider in its web. And there, Daniel threw the envelope onto the sofa. "She's not going to sign." Emily bit her lip, controlling her anger. "You didn't insist. She reminded me of who she is and who I should be." Emily fell silent, but deep down she knew if she can't get what she wants through love, she'll get it by force. And Martha, unintentionally, had just started the war she never wanted to fight. What if you were in Daniel's place? Would you have signed the document? Leave your opinion in the comments below. Is this story making you tense too? It was a sweltering Friday afternoon, when Emily decided she would wait a little longer, wait for Daniel to make a move, wait for Martha to give in. No, that narrative was out of control, and she, Emily Hudson, was not the type of woman to accept defeat. She waited until Daniel left for work, and with a vague excuse, "I'm going to take care of some things at your mother's house." She took the spare keys he kept in the medicine drawer. He got in the car and drove to the suburbs, his palms sweaty and his heart racing, but not from guilt, from anticipation. Martha had gone out. She was with a group of seamstresses from the community center, reliving the days when she created dresses with names and stories. Emily knew this. She had checked the Facebook group where the woman shared photos of their gatherings. When she entered the apartment, the scent was of lavender and old wood. The door creaked. She walked through the living room with light steps, like a thief. He went straight to his room. She opened drawers. She rummaged through boxes. At the back of the closet, she found a red folder, locked with a rubber band. There, hidden among old papers and accounting notebooks, was what she was looking for. A will, handwritten, but with a notarized signature. Daniel's name was there as the sole heir. Emily smiled disdainfully. Of course, anything for my beloved little son. But right behind it, she found another envelope. This one was more recent. On letterhead, a new version of the will. There, the content was different. Part of the assets were destined for a social sewing project for vulnerable young people. Another part went to an institution that offered shelter to single mothers. Daniel was still mentioned, but in a much more symbolic way. And Emily, there wasn't a single line with her name. She felt her face burning. Ungrateful old woman. In a fit of rage, he tore the old version of the will to shreds, as if to erase the past. The papers flew across the room. But when he picked up the new version, he hesitated. This was an official document. Tearing it up could have consequences. She looked around. He thought. And then, with a calculated smile, he put the New Testament back in the folder and hid the old, torn version inside a plastic bag at the bottom of the kitchen trash can. Before leaving, he looked at his watch. He still had time. He went all the way down to the basement. With a flashlight in hand, she slowly descended the stairs. She found Martha's drawings again. She ran her fingers over the patterns as if discovering a treasure map. She wanted to find something bigger, something that would prove Martha was worth more than she herself believed. And he found it. An unsigned transfer of rights receipt, dated 1993. It was an initial negotiation with an investment fund that would later become part of Celine Apparel. There was no formal agreement. This meant that Martha might still be entitled to a share in the company's stock, or at least to be able to initiate legal proceedings. Emily saved a copy on her cell phone. When she heard the gate opening, she froze. He ran up the stairs, put everything back, locked the basement door, and went out the side entrance. From the car, he saw Martha climbing the steps with her calm expression, oblivious to what had just happened. Emily took a deep breath. She had an ace up her sleeve. And now, all she needed was one wrong move from her mother-in-law, and she herself would take charge of pushing it. That night, Daniel arrived home and found Emily in the living room, relaxed, drinking wine. "How was your day?" "I've sorted a few things out," she replied, smiling. "And you should talk to your mother about that community project of hers. She might be throwing away an asset." Daniel found the tone strange, but didn't question it. He sensed there was something behind his wife's behavior, something he couldn't name. In her room, Emily looked at the files she had saved on her phone. She had backed them up to the cloud. She printed everything onto a flash drive. She was ready to force her hand. And when the final blow came, she wanted Martha to feel exactly what she felt that day, to be erased, torn apart, and thrown in the trash. Do you think Emily will manage to fool everyone, or will Martha strike back at the right moment? Comment below. The silent battle between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law is getting darker and darker. The autumn leaves continued to fall, but for Martha, the days began. To all seemed the same. She would put the kettle on the stove and forget to turn it on. Then she would turn it on and forget to turn it off. On Monday, she went to the market and bought the same items twice. On Thursday, she couldn't remember where she'd left her cell phone. It was in the freezer next to a tub of ice cream. At first, she laughed at herself. "Things of old age," she said aloud, trying to ease the weight of her worry. But deep down, something in her heart already knew. Something was wrong. It was during a routine visit to the doctor to renew his blood pressure medication prescription that Dr. Klein, his longtime physician, noticed the change in his behavior. "Martha, you told me 3 times today that Daniel got married." He smiled kindly. "And I went to the wedding. Remember?" She laughed, embarrassed. "I think I'm a little distracted." "It doesn't seem like a case of distraction to me. I'll refer you for a neurological evaluation just to be sure." "Doctor, is it that serious?" He didn't answer with words, but his gaze said it all. 2 weeks later, after imaging exams and memory tests, the diagnosis came: early-stage Alzheimer's. Martha stared at the envelope as if she were holding a verdict. "So, am I disappearing?" "Not yet," said the neurologist, "but it's important to prepare. There are treatments to slow the progression, and emotional support helps a lot." She nodded without emotion. She left the doctor's office with the prescription in hand and a heavy head. She didn't cry, she didn't break down, but that night, sitting in her armchair with the papers on her lap, she spoke to herself. "I need to finish what I started, before I forget myself." The next day, Daniel showed up unannounced. He brought a bouquet of wildflowers and looked more relaxed. Perhaps he was trying to make amends, or perhaps he was simply escaping the tense atmosphere at home. Martha smiled, surprised. "What kind of miracle is this? I missed you. May I?" She nodded, making room for him to enter. They drank coffee together, laughed at old memories, and for a few minutes everything seemed as before, until Martha dropped her cup. "Oh, what a careless mistake," she said, bending down to clean up the broken pieces. Daniel crouched down beside her. "Mom, is everything all right?" She hesitated for a second. "Yes," but her eyes said otherwise. Daniel held her hand firmly. "I'm here, okay? I'll always be here." She looked at him intently. For a moment he seemed like the same boy she used to cradle on feverish nights, and it was then that she decided to tell him, "I was diagnosed with Alzheimer's." Daniel froze. "What?" "It's just beginning, but it will progress. I don't know when or how. I just know I need to get organized. I need to put things in order before I forget who I am." Daniel squeezed his eyes shut, as if that could stop the tears from falling. "Mom, I don't know what to say. Just say you'll respect my decisions, because they're still mine. And I have a lot to do." Late in the afternoon, after Daniel had already left, Martha picked up an old planner. She began listing everything she needed to finish, forward the social project documents, reviewing the official will, sewing the 3 incomplete dresses, write a final letter to Daniel, finding someone to continue their legacy. She knew that time was limited, but for the first time, she felt no fear. I felt a sense of urgency. On the other side of town, Emily also heard the news. Daniel Naively, had told his wife, thinking she would be supportive. But when Emily learned of the diagnosis, she saw an opportunity in him. A shortcut. With Alzheimer's, she may be considered incapable of making decisions on her own, he said on the phone with his lawyer. Eventually, yes, but not yet. So I need to speed up the process before she signs something that cuts me off completely. Emily hung up the phone with a bitter smile. For Martha, the diagnosis was a death sentence. For Emily, an opportunity. And in the silence between these two visions, an invisible battle was about to erupt. Do you think Martha will still be able to leave her legacy before the disease progresses? It was Saturday night when Martha decided to send the message. Dinner here at home, just the three of us, nothing special, at 7 p.m. Simple, direct. No details, no questions. Daniel responded with a heart emoji. Emily replied with a dry but sufficient, okay. That morning, Martha got up early. She set aside her best set of dishes, which she had received from Mrs. Goldstein when she was still an apprentice. She cleaned the house, prepared her famous chicken fricassee, cheese balls, and an apple pie, the recipes that Daniel had loved as a child. She put on her navy blue dress, the same one she wore the day she sold her first piece as a designer. She looked at herself in the mirror and whispered to herself, "Today, I'm finishing what I started." At 7:05 p.m., the doorbell rang. Daniel entered with a bouquet of sunflowers. Emily, made up and wearing a dress that was too tight for the occasion, sported a forced smile. "That smells so good," Daniel commented. "It looks like something out of an old movie," Emily murmured, already analyzing the decor. Martha received them calmly. They sat at the table, they ate, they talked. For almost an hour it seemed like any other dinner, but everyone felt that there was something unspoken floating in the air. That's when Martha stood up. "I want to say a few things." Emily rolled her eyes discreetly. Daniel tensed. "I know I don't have much time," Martha began. "And I'm not talking about the time of life. I'm talking about the time of memory, of words, of ideas. There are things that need to be said before silence overcomes me." Daniel frowned. "Mother," she raised her hand. She was asking for silence. "Emily, when you laughed at my sweater a few weeks ago, I felt ashamed, but not for myself. For you, because I used to be a woman who despised what I didn't understand, and I paid dearly for it." Emily opened her mouth, but Martha continued, "You don't know me. You never wanted to. You saw my old clothes, my modest house, and defined me as useless. But what you didn't see were the 28 dresses I sewed in the early hours of the morning to keep Daniel in school. You didn't see the patched shoes I made for him to wear in the winter. You didn't see my bleeding hands, and yet still firm." She turned to her son. "Daniel, I raised you to be better than this, better than silence. You loved me. Now you seem afraid to defend me. But I still see you. I see the boy who cried when he saw a wounded bird. And that boy still lives inside you." Emily snorted. "Okay, that's enough. Has this turned into an emotional monologue now?" "No, not yet." Martha picked up a remote control and turned on the TV. A video began to play on the screen. It was a recording made with a discreet camera hidden in the bookcase. Emily on the sofa, on the phone. "That old woman is pretending to be sick. I bet she doesn't even have Alzheimer's. And even if she does, all the better. That way she'll sign everything quickly and forget later. With luck, she might even sign twice." Daniel's eyes widened. Emily froze. "Where did you get that?" she asked, shocked. "I installed a camera after I realized my papers had been tampered with. The trash doesn't lie, Emily. I found my will torn up. You betrayed me, inside my own house." Emily tried to explain herself, but Daniel stood up, his eyes filled with tears. "I trusted you. I did this for us, to secure the future. Do you think I'm the villain here?" Martha turned off the TV. The future built on lies is the same one that crumbles in silence. Emily grabbed her bag and stormed out, slamming the door. Daniel stayed, seated, speechless. Martha approached and took her hand. "You don't need to choose sides, my son. You just need to remember who you are." He hugged her, tightly, for a long time. "Forgive me, Mother," she smiled. "I still remember your smell from when you were a baby. Alzheimer's can't take that away." And that night, for the first time in many years, Daniel cried in his mother's lap like he did when he was a child. Do you think Emily deserves a chance at redemption, or has she gone too far? The morning after dinner, Daniel and Emily's house looked like a battlefield after the battle. Emily had slept in the guest room, not by choice, but because Daniel had locked the door to the master bedroom. Silent, wounded, broken, he had spent the night re-watching his mother's video, the same one she had shown at dinner. He reviewed every word Emily had said on the phone, the coldness, the mocking tone, the absence of any compassion, and worse, he acknowledged that he himself had become complicit, albeit silently, in this pain. Around 7 in the morning, Emily entered the kitchen, her face swollen with anger and shame. "Are you going to stop talking to me now?" Daniel didn't answer. He stood there, staring at an old childhood photograph on the refrigerator, a 6-year-old picture of him in Martha's lap, laughing and holding a rag doll. Emily snorted. "Seriously? You're going to destroy everything because of a bitter old woman?" That's when Daniel turned around, and what Emily saw in his eyes wasn't anger. It was disappointment, deep, irreversible. "This old woman stitched my life together with her own fingers. You only proved that you don't know how to stitch together even a gesture of respect." Emily crossed her arms defiantly. "And what are you going to do? Kick me out?" Daniel looked at her calmly, as if he had already made a decision even before the question was asked. "I want you to leave my house. Today." "Are you kicking me out because of that woman?" "No, I'm pushing you away because of what you've become, and maybe what I've become by your side." Emily tried to resist. She screamed, she cursed, but nothing worked. At noon, she left with 2 suitcases, slamming the door shut for the last time. On the other side of town, Martha was sewing. With the light from the window gently hitting the beige fabric, she traced the line with precision. A simple dress, modernly and elegantly cut, with slightly puffed sleeves, a piece she had designed more than 20 years ago and never had the courage to produce. Now it was producing. Each stitch seemed to stitch together the loose parts of her soul. She sewed to remember, to remain present while time still allowed. Daniel appeared unannounced. He entered, saw his mother sewing, and for a moment felt time turn back. She looked at him with a silent smile, and he simply knelt on the living room floor. "Forgive me, Mother, for everything, for every time I was silent." She stopped sewing, stood up and hugged him. "Silence is also a form of stitching, son, and today you broke the right thread." In the weeks that followed, Daniel began visiting Martha every day. He brought coffee, flowers, and stories from work. He started helping her organize old patterns, digitize documents, and create a virtual portfolio with pieces she had never shown to anyone. Martha didn't want fame. She wanted a legacy. And now, with memory as a silent enemy, she was racing against time to pass the baton. It was Daniel who suggested reopening his mother's old project, a workshop school for young people in situations of social vulnerability. "We can give classes, teach cutting and sewing, organize community fashion shows, show that in fashion is also resistance," he said enthusiastically. Martha listened, her eyes shining. "And you, are you going to sew?" Daniel smiled. "I've already started. Look at my pricked fingers." She laughed, moved. Meanwhile, Emily was desperately trying to clean up her image. She posted fake stories, tried to deny the video, and accused Martha of manipulation. But the truth was already out in the world, and once seen, it cannot be ignored. The video leaked. Someone, perhaps Daniel himself, posted it. On social media, along with a simple caption, "My mother was called a disgrace to the family, but now everyone will know who she really is." The video went viral. Thousands of comments. People sharing stories of mothers who fought, grandmothers who were humiliated, forgotten women. Martha, unknowingly, had become a symbol, a living memory, a delicate and powerful act of resistance. Do you believe that all pain can become a legacy if it's stitched together with love? Spring was beginning to show its first signs in Springfield. The sun gently touched the city, and the trees, once bare, now displayed small green buds. In Martha's house, the air smelled of fresh coffee, sewing thread, and freshly picked flowers. Daniel carefully folded fabrics, while Martha filled a notebook with large, bold letters. She wrote slowly, not out of laziness, but because her mind was no longer as quick as it once was. Some days were good, others hazy. Sometimes she forgot names. At other times, she forgot that she was forgetting. But that morning she was lucid and decided. Daniel sensed the tension in the air. He felt an invisible weight hanging over the room. He stopped what he was doing and looked at her. "Mother?" She closed the notebook. "I want to talk to you, son." Daniel sat down opposite her, listening intently. "I've made a decision, and I need you to respect it." "Anything, Mom. You know that." She took a deep breath, her eyes welling up with tears, but without wavering. "I want to go to a care home, not because I was told to, but because I choose to. I want a place where I can be cared for with dignity, where other women like me also live with courage. A calm place, with a garden and sewing in the afternoons, and silence when I forget everything else." Daniel felt his stomach sink. "But I can take care of you. Here, with me, we'll figure something out." "I know, but you need to move on. Live, create, teach, and I need to say goodbye to things while I can still see them clearly, while I'm still me." He began to cry, holding back tears. "I don't want you to go." She smiled, holding his hands. "But I need to, not as a weakness, as a strength, because I love myself enough to know when to leave. And because I love you even more, so I don't have to drag you down with me." Over the weekend, with the help of some friends from the community, Daniel helped pack Martha's most symbolic belongings: her old sewing machine, her patterns, her photos, her notebooks. The navy blue dress was carefully folded and placed in a special box. The new assisted living facility was just a few blocks away, small, family-friendly, with a porch full of sunflowers and a shared sewing room. The other residents greeted her with warm hugs and curiosity. Many had already seen the viral video. To them, Martha was a living legend. At the entrance to the room, Martha placed a photo. It showed her holding little Daniel, sewing a rag doll together. On the first night, Daniel found an envelope with his name on it on his desk. Inside, a letter. "Son, if one day I don't remember your name, know that my heart will still recognize you. The love I wove into you is woven into the fabric of time. Go live, and please teach others to sew too, with love, with pain, with truth." Daniel read and wept. He hadn't wept in a long time, not from sadness, but from a love so profound it burst from within. In the days that followed, Daniel began preparations for Martha's project. She called for volunteers. She rented an old workshop. She began teaching sewing to at-risk youth. On the door sign, she put in gold letters, "Atelier M. Lane, where every stitch tells a story." And there, amidst broken fabrics and shattered lives, something new began to be born. Something that neither Alzheimer's nor time nor Emily's cruelty could erase. Emily, for her part, had disappeared from social media. After the video, she became persona non grata in several social circles. She tried to sue Martha for defamation, but was rejected. The truth was on record, on video, and in hearts. She lost everything. But perhaps, somewhere, she was gaining what she never had, the chance to start over. Far away, small, silent. Have you ever had to let someone go, even knowing it would break your heart? In the room, bathed in the afternoon sun, the soft sounds of scissors, gliding threads, and youthful laughter filled the air. The Monsieur Lane atelier was fully operational. Walls decorated with Martha's old patterns, pictures with inspiring phrases like "sewing is remembering with your hands," and shelves full of colorful fabrics gave the space the feeling of a home for creative and wounded souls. Daniel walked between the tables, helping the young apprentices, girls and boys with broken stories, insecure gazes, and still inexperienced fingers. But there, sewing, they all seemed whole. And on that special day, he prepared something different. A chair in the center of the studio, a small, improvised catwalk, a bright red evening gown displayed on a mannequin with a small sign beside it, M. Lane's last design. And for the first time since her move, Martha would return to the studio. She arrived hand in hand with a kind caregiver. She walked slowly, but smiled. The navy blue dress from decades ago still suited her well, even though her body was more frail, more stooped. Her eyes, however, still shone. Upon seeing the sign with her name on it, Martha stopped. "Is this mine?" Daniel approached. "It belongs to all of us. But it started with you, Mom." She stroked the mannequin with trembling fingers. She touched the red fabric and seemed to remember. "I drew this. Yes, for many years, and now it's here, ready, just like you always dreamed." She looked around. The young people watched her respectfully. One of them, a 17-year-old girl named Kiara, approached. "You taught me how to sew, even though I didn't know how. Thank you." Martha smiled. "I only connected the loose ends. You were the ones who stitched the future together." The afternoon continued with presentations. The students showed their creations. Each piece had a dedication to a grandmother, to a mother, to a younger version of themselves. Martha sat there, observing everything like an artist before her final work. At one point, Daniel climbed onto the small walkway. "You've all heard of M. Lane, but today I want you to meet Martha Lane, a woman who sewed with her fingers, with her heart, and with her soul, even when no one saw her, even when they tried to erase her." He held his mother's hand. "She doesn't remember everything now, but we will remember for her. Every stitch she sewed is here." He pointed at the students. "In each one of you." At the end of the event, when most people had already left, Martha remained seated. She looked at the red dress as if she were talking to it. Daniel approached. "Are you tired?" She shook her head no. "I don't remember everything, son. Sometimes I wake up, not knowing who I am. But in here," she pointed to her chest, "I'm still sewing, I'm still me." He swallowed hard. "You are so much more than you remember, and the whole world knows it now." She laughed softly. "One day, everyone forgets. The name, the story, but not how they made you feel." Daniel hugged her gently, and in that hug was everything. The boy she raised, the man she taught him to be, and the woman who never stopped being a giant, even when the world tried to make her small. On the studio wall, a final plaque had been installed that afternoon. "This space is dedicated to those who have been silenced, ridiculed, or forgotten." But even so, they stitched worlds together with their own hands. And at the bottom, just 2 words: M. Lane. If this story truly touched you, tell me, what will you take away from your experience of meeting Martha? Comment below. Sometimes the greatest revolutions begin with a thread and a heart willing to stitch together memories. Until next time.